Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest nights. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. 'Cause your goodness is running out, it's running after me. 'Cause your goodness is running out, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now, and I give you everything. 'Cause your goodness is running out, it's running after me. 'Cause your goodness is running out, it's running after me. 'Cause your goodness is running out, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now, and I give you everything. 'Cause your goodness is running out, it's running out to me. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. spoke a word, you were singing over me. You've been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life for me. You've been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, He chases me down, fights till I'm found. He's the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. But I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You've been so, so good to me. I felt nowhere, you paid it all for me. You've been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found. He's the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, He chases me down, fights till I'm found. He's the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the
Well, good morning and welcome to the Rivers online worship experience for January 29th, 2023. Now, I just want to help you understand, this is the last Sunday in January for 2023. And I'm wearing my white pants today to help inspire us to look towards spring. Now, to be honest, I'm kind of grieving the potential arrival of spring because I love this cold weather. I mean, these 2 months, January and February, in my opinion, it doesn't get any better than this. We are filming in a building that has no heat and air conditioning today, but I am toasty warm because I'm wearing my brand new flannel and ready to go. So I hope you're ready for a great service today. I hope God has blessed you this week, and I hope that you have arrived today with a heart kind of open to what God's word might have for you, that you have arrived today with anticipation to see what God might want to do in your heart and in your life. It's easy to listen to sermons and think, oh, Joe really needs to hear this, or Mary, boy, could she use this. But it's a fascinating thing when we pause and just say, Lord, what do you want to teach me through your word? So with that attitude, I would like to welcome both our Franklin Park campus and the River New Kensington and all who are watching online to prepare and enjoy this message together. Today, we are continuing our series just simply called House of Freedom. And in this series, we are looking at those words that God spoke to his people when they came out of slavery and he delivered them into freedom. And he wanted them to know how best to live the free lives that he was giving to them. And so he spoke these words that we know as the 10 Commandments and gave them these life-giving words, not to hem them in and confine them and make them enslaved again, but to give them freedom in their souls, in their relationships, in their walk with him. And so let's jump in today. We are in part 4 of this series, and we are looking at big commandment number 5. Now, you're going to be excited today because the last 2 times I preached online, my sermon notes were front and back and front and back. Just way too many. Today, it's a front and a back, so it should be a concise, clear, helpful message. Exodus chapter 20, verse 12, gives us commandment number 5. It just simply says, honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord is giving you. Now, that's a fascinating set of words. And I want to help us see that there's kind of a shift that's happening here. The first 4 commandments, the first 4 words that God spoke to his people were about the vertical relationship with him and them, with God and his people, wrapping up with honor the Sabbath, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. And if you missed my sermon in prison last week, you're going to want to go back and watch that. But this marks a shift in the commandments to where they're going to focus on the horizontal, our relationships with each other. And we had to get the horizontal relationship with God right to be in position to have a proper attitude toward our horizontal relationships. But it's important to note, with this 5th commandment, this commandment is foundational to all the rest, to all that remain. If we get this commandment right, we will learn how to live out the remaining 5 commandments with joy and grace and embrace the freedom that God has given us. So how can this simple command, honor your father and mother, be so foundational? Well, I want to just focus on the little tagline at the end of it, because it describes so much about that simple commandment. It says, honor your father and mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Now, that statement, so that you may live long in the land, is less about the chronology of your life and the amount of years that you live, and more about the abundant life that God wants his people to live with. The quality of your life will be exponentially better if you learn and obey and follow this foundational commandment. So how can this simple command, honor your father and your mother, be so foundational? What's the big deal about that? Well, I want to give you just a list. I know you don't like lists, but you don't have to fill in the blanks on these. Just absorb them, listen to them. The parental relationship is the first and most important relationship in our lives. It shapes all other relationships. In the relationships with our parents, we learn many, many things. Here we go. We learn what it is to have someone in authority over us. Now, some are saying, I don't want anybody in authority over me. Well, that's why God lets us know we need to have someone in authority over us, and our parents are the first ones that are placed in that position. Secondly, we learn to listen to people. Do you ever have a relationship where there's no listening going on? Everybody's talking over each other. Nobody's hearing what each other are saying. This week, I had a sacred moment with a dear, trusted colleague of mine. And I really heard him. I really listened to him. Now, this is a skill that we learn through our parental relationship. We also learn to honor them. We're called to honor them, honor your father and mother. And in this relationship with our parents, we learn what it means, what it looks like to honor them. Here's one that we learn rather reluctantly. You ready? This relationship is so foundational to us because we learn to do things we sometimes don't want to do. Do you remember growing up, your parents hearkening on you to do something that you really didn't want to do? Well, I have one teenager left for the next 2 months, and then they're all in their 20s. So I can tell you stories and stories, not just about my life of getting my parents getting me to do something I did not want to do, because I was a stubborn little kid. My dad told me that on a Sunday when I was 2 years old, I came home from church and I refused to take my black dress shoes off. I wanted to wear them in the house, and I refused to take them off. And my dad got a hold of me and said, "You're taking them off." And I just refused and said, "I am not taking them off." And he got physical with me to get me to take them off. And I still refused to take them off. Finally, my mom said, "Larry, I think you better just let the boy go." So it was a hard lesson for me to learn, that lesson of the importance to do things sometimes that I did not want to do. We also learn in this relationship to live with other people. I don't always get my way. I have to defer. I'm not the center of attention all the time. It's not all about me. We learn to live with other people. Can you hear that magnificent rain? It sounds like sleet, and I'm hoping that it is, because it was kind of snowing on the way in here. So I hope you can hear that, because, that just brings joy to my soul. January and February mark it best 2 months of the year, and we're smack dab in the middle of it. I am loving life. We also learn that there are authority structures in the world. Our parental relationship teaches us what it's like to live under authority, but that relationship also alerts us to the fact that outside of our house, outside of our home, there are authoritarian structures in the world that we will consistently live under. We learn about respect and obedience. And hopefully, through our parental relationship, we learn about love and protection. Because Mr. DeYoung, in his book, The Ten Commandments, he states that civilizations, societies, cultures, and countries do not flourish apart from social order, trust, and mutual respect. All of that is meant to be taught and embedded in the incubator of the family. It's not too much to say that loving your neighbor begins with listening to mom and dad. Now, I didn't let you know at the beginning that we are filming at my friend's building, his warehouse, where he is a woodworker. And he has wood laying around, and when I walked around, I found this. And I thought, I think that might be one of the coolest pieces of wood I've ever seen. It just has great texture and great twirl. Texture and twirl, how about that? And I just wanted to share it with you just because it's January and I'm happy and I can. Okay? Here you go. See why we film in different locations? You don't get this with me standing behind a pulpit. Unless, of course, it's the high pulpit at the neighboring church. That would be, as noted earlier, a blast. So, I just want to share with you, John Calvin, the great Reformation leader, he insists that honor requires 3 attitudes. It requires 3 actions. And I'd like to share those with you now. First of all, it requires reverence. If you're going to honor your mother and father, whether you're a young child or an adult, it requires reverence. Now, the reality is, I do not demand my kids to revere me. Now, when they wake up in the morning, I do ask them to call me Pastor Dean, but they often don't. No, I'm kidding. I don't ask them to revere me because often I get it wrong. As a parent, I don't get it right. The hair on the back of my neck stands up when I begin to recount and remember and think through some of the most significant ways and times that I got it wrong in raising my children, where I didn't deserve to be looked at with reverence or respect. And yet, I apologize. I go to my children and say, hey, I got it wrong. I didn't get it right. Will you please forgive me? I know that that was hurtful. I know that that was embarrassing for you. I know that you wish I hadn't said or done that, and I'm so sorry. Will you please forgive me? When I move toward my children, when I don't get it right, when my eyes are open and I move toward them and apologize, that helps them live with a healthy reverence for their father. A kind of an attitude of, I can trust Dad will make it right, even if initially he got it wrong. That's reverence. Obedience. Now that's a hard one. That's a hard one. I love these words in Ephesians chapter 6, verses 1 through 4, where Paul kind of restates this commandment from God in Exodus and kind of adds to it. He says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on earth." Now, I didn't tell you the title of the sermon because I wanted to mention it here. The title of this sermon is just simply "The Pursuit of Happiness." And you may be saying, what does that have to do with honoring my mother and father? Well, I think the Apostle Paul spells it out clearly for us. If we honor our father and mother, this is a commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and you may enjoy long life on earth. What our founding fathers may have termed as the pursuit of happiness. And I want to invite you to look at your relationship with your parents, your relationship with your children, and ask, am I, as a father, as a mother, acting honorably so that they are drawn to honor me? And am I honoring my parents as an adult in a way that I am called to? Verse 4 of Ephesians 6 says, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." I had one of my closest friends, I was asked over 25 years ago to be in his wedding. And his parents had divorced when he was younger. And there was a lot of pain and hurt from that. But they were both at the wedding. And the only thing his parents asked him is if he and his new bride would take a picture with them. If the mother would be able to stand on one side and her son and his wife in the middle and his father on the other side. And my friend was so wounded and hurt by their divorce that he refused to do it. His reasoning was that taking that photograph would have dishonored marriage. And I watched this conflict arise and him struggle as an adult with obeying his parents and their wishes. And it was a very challenging time on what is invited to be the happiest day of our lives. Well, years later, just a couple years ago, he was back in town, and his dad is now well in his 80s, and he said to me, I know you lost your dad when he was much younger than my dad is now. Do you have any advice for me? And I looked at him and said, spend as much time with your father as you can, because you will never regret it. A few weeks ago, he called me on a Saturday afternoon. He said, Dean, thank you for those words. I'm driving back home 3.5 hours away. I came home to take my dad to breakfast and spend the morning with him on his birthday. And I treasure those times, and I would have missed them if you didn't call me to spend time with my aging father. He has learned to live with the third thing that John Calvin calls us to live with as we honor others, and that's just gratitude. Just gratitude. Now, confession, I struggled early in my marriage to live with a God-honoring sense of gratitude for my mother. My mother was a force in my life. And I found that when I became an adult, this curling up and just tensing of my entire body whenever she would direct me or try to get me to do what she wanted me to do. And she was just trying to live life with me as her son, and I found it as an invasion. And I started to accumulate the wrongs that I felt had been done to me, and I started to exaggerate them in my mind, and I really struggled with living with gratitude toward my mom, who, by the way, was a spectacular mother. But I think it's kind of our human reflex to do that in a way that doesn't honor God. And it was several years later, when I was in my 30s, that I had friends who were part of her church, and they said, Dean, your mom rocks. Your mom is amazing. Your mom blesses me. Your mom helps me. Your mom has shown me what it looks like to follow Christ. You are so lucky to have her as a mother. And I remember thinking, yeah, you had no idea what it was like to grow up with her, you know? But I finally just shut up and started listening to them. And I thought, you know what? If they can live and see and have that kind of gratitude toward my mother, then what is it that I am fighting against? Well, I have a video that I want to show you, and it's just a video of an animated young person struggling with reverence, obedience, and gratitude. Now, this video has a caricature, an animated character, so don't get wigged out by just the oddity of this character in this short video, but I want you to hear how this person is struggling with commandment number 5.
Today, I'm unreal. Yes, I know I'm supposed to honor and respect my parents, but respect has to be earned, right? I mean, how am I supposed to respect people that don't respect me or my decisions? My friends tell me I gotta get over it, and some of them even say I'm just as bad as my parents. And I'm like, what? I'm doing all I can to not be like them. And if I am, maybe it's because I was born that way, because I'm their kid. And that really frustrates me because I want to change who I am. But shouldn't they have to change first?
I hope maybe that video caused you to see some of the attitudes that you might have toward your parents if they are still living that may not carry as much honor as we are called to live with. It's an interesting thing, but obedience to our parents looks a little different the older that we get. Of course, we respect their opinions. We seek their advice and wisdom, but ultimately, you and I are responsible for our lives as adults. You and I are responsible for the decisions that we have to make. So we have to kind of break away from our parents and their deciding, their call for us to obey them. Honoring them means we become the adults. This is spoken in Genesis, and then Jesus restates it as Paul does in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 31. When Paul says, "For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, and the two will become one flesh." Now, guys, can I just talk to you for a second? Some of us, we're kind of mama's boys, aren't we? We like the way our moms take care of us. We love how they nurture us. We love how they make our favorite meal when we come home. We love how we kind of have them wrapped around our finger, and they love it too. And it's just a sweet, sacred relationship. But there's a time for us to grow up and be men. I'm reminded of this dynamic in that State Farm commercial that just kind of came out, where the husband and wife go to the yard of the State Farm guy and they yell up to his window at night, and he opens the window, and of course he's in his red State Farm pajamas. And they said, "Hey, what if we need you late at night?" And he says, "Don't worry. At State Farm, you can call us 24/7, even in the middle of the night." And the wife says, "Great. Because what if someone still calls his mom for everything?" And her husband kind of looks at her like, You talking about me? And then Jake from State Farm continues to talk a little bit. And then all of a sudden, the husband's phone rings and he answers it and he says, yeah, Mom, everything's great. Yeah. And then he realizes he's talking to his mom in the middle of the night, just like his wife indicated he does it. He goes, not my mom. And it was really cute. Well, some of us, we live in that zone of having our moms wrapped around our finger, and we carry it on way too long. And it's not healthy, and it's not good, and it's manipulative. And so I want to call us to honor our mothers and our fathers by becoming the adults that we are called to become. But it's not just children that are called to honor their parents, but adults, we are called to honor our parents. You know, our culture tends not to honor the generations who have gone before us, who are still living with us. Wouldn't it be wonderfully countercultural if our spirit, we chose to do it differently, if our churches chose to do it differently? For people to step into our church and find the opposite inside and have a moment like, wait, here is a place where we value age and look to the wisdom of our elders. In our community, my wife's mother and father, Doug and Carol Hetrick, I just have to tell you, to so many people, they're like rock stars. They love their Gunny and Poppy. They love watching Carol have such a sweet spirit and still have the strength and vibrancy in her. Oh, you thought I was going to say her age, didn't you? But I didn't. To where she watches both of her grandchildren, and it is the highlight of her day. And Doug, so many people come up and say, I just love how he embraces life with such positivity. He's wide-eyed, wide open to the adventure ahead. And even though they are not driving at this time, they have not turned bitter. They embrace life, and we get to honor them. My wife made a commitment this past year when their car went down, and we decided to just wait to get another car for them. And she said, Mom and Dad, I'll drive you everywhere. And I took them to their doctor's appointments early in the morning. Leslie took them everywhere this summer, weekly on a field trip, got them on a small pontoon boat on the Allegheny River. And after all these adventures all summer long, Leslie's mother looked at her and said, honey, you're not going to have any regrets one day. Because she committed to live her life with the honor and respect to her parents that they deserve, that we are called to live with. So, in a very practical way, I just want to point out that we can live with honor and respect for our mothers and fathers with these 4 final words. First of all, live with joyful obedience. Live with joyful obedience. Now, I was a kid that whenever I was asked to do something, my immediate reaction would be no, and then give me about 2 or 3 minutes or 10 minutes, less than a day, and I'd come back to my mother and say, okay, I will. I don't know why that was. And so we are called and invited to live with joyful obedience. Secondly, I want to call us to live with spoken gratitude. Spoken gratitude. I was 30 years old and I transitioned from having my own business to going to be a pastor full-time down in Mississippi. And my parents had a big whiteboard on their behind their television set. And I wanted to draw your attention to the fantastic woodworking pieces that my friend Neil Ofeisch, who we're filming in his building, has made that we get to look at and enjoy today. And thank you for allowing us to film here. But on their whiteboard, I just wrote this note that said, "Thank you for setting me free." I said mother and dad. My mother loved for me to call her mother, never allowed to call her mom. Mother and dad, thank you for setting me free to do ministry. You're the best. And my mother kept that verbal affirmation, that spoken gratitude on that whiteboard. It's never been erased. She died 10 years ago. I still have that whiteboard. Here's a picture of it today. And what she loved about it was not only the spoken gratitude, but the fact that I got the grammar right. I didn't say Y-O-U-R. I said Y-O-U apostrophe R-E. You are the best. A third thing that we are invited to live with in honoring our parents is just humble apologies. There have been times in my parents' lives that I had to go to them and apologize as their son. And living with the ability to humbly apologize is part of abundant living. And then finally, intentional connection. Intentional connection. A few Friday nights ago, Leslie said, "Hey, Dean, let's take my parents to Reyes Teca. That's their favorite Mexican restaurant in this area." So we took them to Reyes Teca, took my kids, had a whole table full. And she's like, "Dean, you're paying for this one." Like, okay. And I find that my kids call me and said, "Hey, Dad, do you want to join us at SoCal Mexicali Grill?" And I show up, and I'm like, "Yeah," and there's 8 of us, and we have a great lunch, and then they leave, and like, I have to pay for it. It's like, oh, okay. So, but we went with her parents. We bought them their dinner. And on the way home, my mother-in-law said, "Leslie, I had just said to Doug over lunch today, I sure wish Dean and Leslie would call us and go to dinner with us tonight." That intentional connection that we live with them, is such a blessing. Now, for those of you that know my story, know that I lost my dad when he was 64 years old in a fatal car accident, and I lost my mother when she was 73 years old in an accident in Hawaii when she was with my daughter. And in a very real way, I felt kind of robbed from honoring my mother and father as they grew old. But God has redeemed that for me. And He has blessed my life so deeply and so richly with my in-laws. She will often apologize when I have to take her somewhere, or I go to the store for her, or I get something for her. And I said, "What, are you crazy? I love this. It's such a sacred blessing to me." So I just want to say, for those of you that tire of the ministry that you have in the lives of your aging parents, I want to invite you to look at it as ministry and as honoring your mother and father. And for those of you that grew up without parents or who don't have parents now, I want to encourage you to lean into the church, because it is the family of God. And when you're part of God's family, you will never run out of family relationships that you can honor people like you would honor your mother and your father. Guys, thank you for allowing me to share this time with you. And I didn't mean to lie to you that I was going to go short. I went as long as normal, and I apologize for that. But I want to thank you for this sacred trust of you spending this time with us every week. God bless you. I'm praying for you and can't wait to see how you honor your parents and those in your life that you're called to honor. God bless you.